All right, welcome to MissouriNet.com. I'm Bill Pollock here at the home base, the mothership, if you will, in Jefferson City, Missouri. But on the road for us in Birmingham, Alabama, we have Phil Kornblut, who you'll know him, who is a sympathizer for the South Carolina Gamecocks. We'll have him on during the season. But we put him to work while he was down there. Said, no, you're going to help us out with some Missouri stuff. And the Tigers had a chance to speak today. And Phil, you were down there. My first question for you, Phil, because we know you're an outsider. We know you're not a Mizzou guy. But after the season the Tigers had last year, have they finally earned respect in the SEC?
Well, I think they have. I mean, you have to pay attention to Missouri. There'll be no sneaking up by the Tigers this year on anybody. But if you look at their team and you look how much they lost from last year's team, you have to kind of take a step back. And I can't put them in the East right now ahead of South Carolina or Georgia. And they may be battling Florida in there as well because they just so much great talent has gone from that offense. Offensive line decimated. Quarterback is gone. I know you got Matty Mock back, and he's very good. Defense also lost a lot of players as well. Those defensive ends are gone. So, cumulatively, I think Missouri lost so much. I think this is a little bit of a rebuilding year. People don't like to hear that. They want to hear that they're going to keep on winning and winning big, and that may happen to some degree. I don't see them getting back to that 11, 12 win plateau this year, but I think if you get to 8 or 9 wins and you have a couple of good wins in the mix, you'll get yourself a nice bowl game out of it. I do think that the wild card here is Matty Mock. He may be the best quarterback in the East, considering who's coming back. Now, Jeff Driscoll could be that guy because he was very good in some ways at Florida before he got hurt. Now with the new offensive coordinator and a scheme that better fits his skill set, he might be the best quarterback in the East. Or it could be one of the unknowns, Hudson Mason at Georgia or Dylan Thompson at South Carolina. But Matty Mock, based on what we saw last year and his numbers and what he can do, he could have one of those huge years which might keep Missouri at the very top of the East. I think a lot rides on his shoulders this season.
Now, I will give you, in my opinion, I think South Carolina will be the team to beat. I like your quarterback, Dylan Thompson, who they return, and we can talk about that in a moment. But you said, yes, that Missouri has earned some respect. I think their offensive line will be okay. They're led by center Evan Boehm. They bring back some guys who have some experience because of injuries from a couple of years ago, so I'm okay there. But the one area where Missouri will lack is at least in some experience at the wide receiver position. They lose some big players, whether graduation or kicking Dorial Green-Beckham off the team. So is that pressure on Matty Mock where if this offense doesn't click right away because of the inexperience from the wide receivers, he's going to have to take a brunt of that criticism, even though it may not be fairly directed toward him?
Well, the quarterback always gets too much praise, too much criticism. We all know that. Listening to the Missouri players talk today, they love Matty Mock. They think he's a terrific talent. I hear a lot of Johnny Manziel comparisons, of course, in that he's sort of a swashbuckler out there. He's willing to take gambles. He's willing to take risks. And there's big reward, and there's also somewhat of a downside to that as well. You get mistakes. You get turnovers. Missouri, of course, as you well know, was huge in the turnover ratio factor last year, and that was a big reason they were so good. I think they were, plus 35 with the turnovers last year, something like that. And it was very one-sided. And so protecting the football will be paramount for whoever's playing quarterback, and in this case, Mock. I think he's got to protect the football, but you also, of course, if you're the coaching staff, you don't want to reel him in. You want him to be able to do what he does. Of course, now it exposes him to the injury risk when he's out there running around, and I don't know what the backup situation is at quarterback at Missouri, but I can pretty much assume that they don't want anything to happen to Mock, that they would be in a real world of hurt if he were to go down and be lost for any extended period of time.
We're talking with Phil Kornblut from the South Carolina Radio Network, who is at the SEC Media Days event in Birmingham, Alabama, covering the Missouri Tigers. Why why are you so quick to say that Jeff Driscoll's going to have a better year, or why wouldn't you say that Georgia's in a rebuilding year? I would think that Missouri, looking at things, that they come in a little bit better shape than those two squads.
Well, first of all, Driscoll has put up some very good numbers at Florida. I know that Florida last year, you can't judge Florida by what happened to them last year. They were decimated by injuries, not just Driscoll going down in the third week. They just had an inordinate number of injuries. They recruit at a very high level every year. They're going to be much closer to where they were 2 years ago when they won 11 games to where they were last year when they won 4 games. So, Driscoll's got all the talent in the world. He can spin it with the best of them. And this, Kurt Roper, what he did at Duke with that offense, getting those guys averaging, 35 points a game. Now he's coming to Florida. It's a much better fit for what Driscoll does compared to what they were doing with him last year, according to Will Muschamp. So, I'm just going on what the head coach says. So I got to believe they're going to be better and that he's going to have a good year. And he still has some good offensive weapons around him. Georgia, Hudson Mason came in late last year because of the injury to the quarterback. And, what he's got to do is turn and hand the ball off. He's a guy in a position where, if I'm Georgia, I don't have to ask him to make big plays. I have to ask him to turn and give the ball to 2, maybe 3 of the best running backs in the SEC, depending on, they got some young guys who could emerge. Any one of those young guys emerging could become one of the best running backs in the SEC. But what you've got in Gurley and Marshall, best 1-2 running back punch in the SEC. Just turn and give the ball to those guys. You got a good offensive line in front of them. That's probably what Georgia's going to try and do. So, just for those reasons, do I put those 2 ahead of Missouri going into the season when I fill out my ballot today? I probably will. I'll probably rank it in the East. I'll probably rank it South Carolina 1 because they get Georgia at home. I'll probably put it Florida 2. I really think Florida is going to make a big jump. I'll probably go Georgia 3 and Missouri 4.
You know what, and that's fair. I'll give you that because while many people said, wait a minute, don't judge Missouri in our first year in the SEC because we went through a slew of injuries that no team could survive. Florida, to your point, you mentioned this, very much the same. They suffered a lot of injuries that not many teams would recover from and have a great year. And so it's pretty funny to hear Muschamp put on the hot seat after one bad year when you look at all the injuries. Coach Pinkel here at Missouri went through the same thing when his team went through a slew of injuries, especially on that offensive line. And James Franklin was hurt, and they went 5-7. People, wanted his head if things didn't turn around. And so, people don't have a lot of patience. But I do agree that, you may be right. Florida may be better. Let's talk about your Gamecocks real quick because a lot of Georgia last year, you said, I'm sticking with South Carolina, and they were right there. The Gamecocks were right there at the end. The only team in the regular season to beat Missouri, an impressive win to come up here to Columbia and win. Tell us real quick about the Gamecocks and what your take is.
Well, South Carolina will have maybe one of the best offenses in the SEC. A lot depends, of course, on what Dylan Thompson does. People are counting on him to pick up where Connor Shaw left off. Now, he's a different type of quarterback compared to Connor in that he doesn't run the ball nearly as much or nearly as well. He doesn't have the breakaway speed that Connor Shaw has. But he does have a very good arm. He does have enough experience where he won't be just a green quarterback that you're putting out there. He has started at Clemson. He has started at Missouri. He came off the bench to lead them to a win at Central Florida. So he has enough experience, and he's been around now. This is his 5th year. He knows this offense extremely well. So if he plays at a high level, they've got a chance to be extremely good on offense. Maybe the best offensive line in the SEC. Maybe not the best group of running backs, but behind Georgia, maybe right there behind Georgia with Mike Davis, could have an unbelievable year. he stays healthy, and he's got some good backups. They're good at wide receiver. Pharaoh Cooper will be a budding star in this league this year after what he showed as a freshman. Very good tight ends, a very good place kicker. Defensively, they lose a great deal. Of course, Clowney is the one that everybody notices being gone, but they lose Kelsey Quarles, they lose Chaz Sutton, lose some guys in the secondary. They've recruited very well on defense, and they have capable replacements who have had a good number of snaps ready to step in. One cornerback position is a little bit up in the air right now. They'll try to resolve that here in the fall. And so, on paper and the way the schedule sets up, this is a South Carolina team that I think is probably going to win 11, maybe 12 games in the regular season. They have to go to Auburn, and Auburn has been a problem for them. Spurrier's 0-5 against Auburn since he got to South Carolina. And, of course, Auburn's really good, and they go to Auburn. So that'll be a tough one for them. But their other 3 league road games, they go to Kentucky, they go to Vanderbilt, and they go to Florida. So, they could they should win at Kentucky, and they should win at Vanderbilt. And we'll see what happens with Florida. That Auburn game comes right in the middle of the year for them. So should they beat Auburn, I really think they're looking at 12-0 and a spot, of course, in the SEC championship game and a spot in the national playoff. Spurrier pointed out accurately yesterday that they have lived on the edge. They've won a number of close games. Your Missouri game last year, for example, they got to continue to get those kind of breaks and be fortunate as well, finding a way to win those close games. But that's been kind of the mindset that has overtaken South Carolina the last 3 years. They have that mindset of, we're going to find a way to win this ball game. Then they go out and play a stinker at Tennessee, a team they were clearly superior to, and they get beat, and it cost them a chance to play in the SEC championship game last year.
Well, you're right. I mean, and that's when you look at the SEC. I mean, you have to, whoever wins their divisions, you have to be able to be one of those teams that can finish at the end. Missouri didn't do it 2 years ago. They had 6 games that they came to within 1 possession. I think they went 3-3. They finished 5-7. If they were a little bit better there, they're going to a bowl game despite all their injuries. They did it last year with the exception of the game against South Carolina, and look what happened. They ended up winning the SEC East. So teams have to win those close games because there's going to be a lot of close ones in the SEC. One final thing, Phil, that I want to get from you in terms of Missouri and the way that they looked at this media day compared to the past couple of years. I know the first year into the league, T.J. Moe came in, had a little bit of a cockiness to him. We were going to say, hey, we can play. You strap on the helmet the same way, all this. How did they look in terms of feeling comfortable, feeling a part of the league now that they're getting ready for the Oops, I lost you, Phil.
Oh, no, I'm here. I'm sorry. Are you with me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I think that they feel very much at home here. Missouri, this is what kind of struck me as being odd a couple of years ago when Missouri and Texas A&M first came into the league and they first came to SEC media days. And, some people in the media treated these guys like they'd never been on a football field before in their lives. And, of course, we all know that Missouri and Texas A&M both have long, historic football traditions and don't take a backseat to anybody. But it's the mindset of the SEC media that if you haven't been in the SEC, you haven't been anywhere, And if you're outside their league, then you're second class. That's just kind of how they look at it. It's kind of the snobbish thing, kind of like ACC media viewed ACC basketball for all those years. So that being said, I think they're very comfortable here. I think now they know they're in the SEC is their home. Gary Pinkel talked about how much being in the SEC and the SEC network means to the Missouri program and, of course, to the entire league. And so, they and listen, much like South Carolina, and, of course, Missouri got it done a lot faster than South Carolina did. It really took South Carolina, except for baseball, it took them 20 years to become established as a competitor in football in the SEC.
Well,
Missouri did it in 2.
Yes, very good point. All right, Phil Kornblut from South Carolina Radio Network. Listen, I don't think there's any ever turning you away from the Gamecocks. You're going to be a Gamecock forever and ever. But we did steal somebody away from Columbia, South Carolina, and is now a Missouri Tiger, and that's Ashley Bird, your boss.
Well, first of all, she knows I'm not a Gamecock. She knows I cover Clemson equally with the Gamecocks, all right? But since we're talking about SEC football, I do have my Gamecock hat on today. But on Sunday and Monday, I'll be at ACC Media Days. I'll have my Clemson cap on to cover the Tigers. But it's good to see Ashley, and it's good to see that you're taking good care of her.
No, he works very, very hard to preserve both, and he catches flack from both sides, which means he's probably fair because both sides think he's jaded. Isn't that true?
Is that true?
Oh, yeah. The Tiger fans think I'm all Gamecock, and the Gamecock fans think I'm all Tigers. And that's fine. That's where you want to be. You want to be down the middle and taking barbs from both sides. I can live with that.
Right, absolutely. All right, so Ashley, we converted one. We converted one to a Tiger. That's a start. You got to start one at a time.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
We're still working on it. We're still working on her.
I have more teams to pull for now. That's all.
Yeah, there you go. We have professional teams in this state. All right. Phil Kornblut, as always, man, a pleasure. And we'll talk to you again throughout the season, and we'll see how your predictions roll out. And I don't know if I'm ready to put Missouri all the way down to fourth, but I respect your opinions, and you always give us good stuff. That's what we like.
Well, you guys are coming to the Columbia this year, so get the barbecue ready because I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed my barbecue last year. I'm looking for another plate this year.
Pelagic bailed. He moved down to Houston. We'll try to get him back out. I'm sure he'll still bet though. He's a Mizzou guy. He'll still bet you, but yeah. Yeah, well, hey, listen, Tigers, our Tigers are 0-2, so they've got some catching up to do here against South Carolina.
Should be a great game when that rolls around, but we got a lot of football between us between now and then, so I look forward to being with you.
Absolutely. Great work for us down in Birmingham, Alabama. That's Phil Kornblut. I'm Bill Pollack, and thanks for watching us here at MissouriNet.com.